This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. We tell you what you need to know, follow up on the context of those stories, and try to help each other understand.
Today, Mollywood tells us about how data centers can help the environment, or at least not ruin it, as well as your emails.
I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Jenn Cutter.
Let's start with what you need to know with the big story. And the big story is that Samsung held its Galaxy Unpacked event Wednesday.
Time to go, TM. Everything's set. Ready? Activating Unpacked stage protocols. Good luck.
I've seen it described as lackluster, Jen, but let's go through what they announced. They started with some Gemini announcements, and the good news for Android fans is that these are available across Android. They're not specific to Samsung Galaxy devices, but they're coming there first. Google Gemini will work across multiple apps at once on the S25 and will be the default. So you can say, find a restaurant and then text the details to my friend Jen, and it'll do that. It'll open the apps it needs to do that. Or you can take a photo of a refrigerator and ask for a recipe. The side button on the S25 will launch Gemini. There's some fun stuff you can do with a long press on that. They always get circled as search features first on Galaxy devices. It can now identify songs, even by you humming into the device. It can recognize phone numbers. It can recognize website addresses and more. Bixby's still there. If you're like, oh, Gemini replaced Bixby. No. It uses LLMs now, so it's even improved. But they're positioning it to be the thing that handles your phone settings, your device level stuff, whereas Gemini is for internet facing stuff, web facing stuff. New S25s will come with 6 months of Gemini Advanced for free, so that's a nice little perk. Before we get into the phones themselves, any of this trip your boat?
Well, as an AI skeptic, I'm a little worried about stuff like the ask for a recipe, because we all know the legendary how many rocks and glue on your pizza. But
yeah,
I know they are
rocks,
fixing that.
Hopefully it's not in there. Yeah.
Yeah. We will find out. But especially if people put weird stuff on in their fridge to trip it up, then that's not the AI's fault.
No, definitely not. The Galaxy S25 range is 3 phones. The 6.2-inch Galaxy S25, that starts at $799. 6.7-inch Galaxy S25 Plus, that starts at $999. And a 6.9-inch Galaxy S25 Ultra, 6.9 inches, but still the same size as it was before because smaller bezels. That starts at $1,299. Phones are available for pre-order right now and start shipping on February 7th. All 3 phones have rounded edges, but they are a little flattened from before, so they are supposedly easier to grip. Qualcomm's 3 nanometer tuned Snapdragon 8 Elite, tuned for Galaxy, is in all of these. No Exynos models. It used to be like, oh, it was Qualcomm in the US, but it might be Exynos somewhere else. Everything is Snapdragon 8 Elite. Samsung says 37% CPU upgrade, 30% graphics boost, 40% improved neural processing unit, and 12 gigabytes of RAM standard. S25 phones are Qi 2 ready for wireless charging. And what that means is they don't have the magnets. So Qi 2 works like Apple's MagSafe, where it can click to the charger and give you a really solid connection. The S25 will not have the magnets, but it will have the Qi 2 protocol. So it can charge wirelessly on a Qi 2 charger. It just won't snap to it. And also videos are captured at 10-bit HDR. There's a feature called Galaxy Log that does logging for color control on video in your post-processing. Pro Visual Engine gives you a virtual aperture. These are very creator-specific tools, but again, these are available across the devices. Before we get to the S25 Ultra specific stuff, how do you feel about the S25 line in general?
I will say they're very pretty, though there aren't many ugly phones these days. And oh my gosh, the cameras. I remember when people complained about cameras sticking out, and now there's just more each phone.
Yeah. The S25 Ultra, even more camera. It's, like I said, 6.9-inch screen with a smaller bezel. All of them have smaller bezels. Bluetooth and motion gestures gone from the S Pen. on the Ultra. So it's just a stylus now. Samsung said nobody used the remote camera shutter function. Nobody used the motion gestures. So we just took it out to save some money. The S25 Ultra has Gorilla Armor 2 glass, a little more durable. The battery can do video playback up to 31 hours. Good for those long flights. And the ultra wide camera on the Ultra goes from 12 megapixels to 50 megapixels. But again, none of these specs really, they're nice. They're good improvements, but none of them are really like huge advances.
Yeah, they're not world changing, but I think we're in the era of incremental upgrades. But battery life, I think, is going to be the big thing for the future. Can you play all the games they say you can play without setting your hands on fire?
Yeah, what do you think of the games? They always demonstrate games whenever anybody shows off a phone. But most of us do play games, but I think most of us play like, Candy Crush style games.
Yeah, like I play like the Animal Crossing Pocket Camp on my phone, but I don't really want to use my phone to bust out like Arkham Asylum or Wolfenstein or anything like that.
It's cool that you can, and it looks impressive in a demo, but
they're so pretty. But I'm thinking like if I'm at home and have to plug it in, I'm going to play a console.
Yeah. Also, weirdly, at the very end of the announcement, they put up an image of the S25 Edge and showed kind of a reverse teardown video of it coming together and looking slim, and gave us no details. Not a tease of when it would come out or how much it would be or anything else. In fact, the keynote just kind of ended on that. We weren't sure if it was over yet.
I thought it hung. I thought my feed was like, oh no, my internet.
So we might be getting more on an S25 Edge at some point, but nothing today. Few things to note in One UI. One UI 7 is the Galaxy S25's operating system, which is Android. It is Google Android. It's full Android, but Samsung likes to lay some extra features on top of it. Smart Select is now called AI Select. That's when you use the stylus to select things. Now Brief is a new app that will give you proactive info. So like news, weather, in the evening, it might give you a recap of your day based on what it knows from your calendar, etc. And when you're on the lock screen, the Now bar will show you things like scores or directions. It's a little like Dynamic Island on iOS, and it will give you access to the Now Brief content from that Now bar. There's also something running called the Personal Data Engine, which can gather info from multiple applications, your past experiences on the phone, to make it easier to find what you're looking for. That is an on-device system. It's not sending any of your data to the cloud. A few other things of interest. Drawing Assist is a tool to craft new images, kind of like Image Playground on iOS. Audio Eraser can cut background noise out of videos. Honestly, the demo they showed was not that impressive to me, but it does work. Generative Edit is a feature that lets you erase unwanted objects, and it now works on device, so it's faster and more accurate. And Samsung Wallet is going to get buy now, pay later at some point. There were other things as well, but that was kind of the major ones for the One UI announcements. We also got some stuff in the smartphone. Connected appliances and smart home devices will soon be able to act as motion and sound sensors across SmartThings. So this is different than something we're going to talk about a little later in the show, which is a firmware upgrade, although I think they're probably using similar technology. This is using smart home devices from Samsung to talk to each other and be able to do things like motion and sound sensing. So not just light bulbs, but your TV, your speaker, your fridge, etc. That's coming later this year. We did not get an announcement for a Ring 2. We did get some Samsung Health related stuff, which I thought would lead into a Ring 2, but no actual Ring 2. Samsung Health adding an antioxidant index to help you get better track of what you're eating, and health record access coming to India and the United States. They did mention Project Muhan, their XR extended reality headset, saying they are working on it with Google. It is coming, but they can't wait to share more details until later this year. Or literally, they are waiting to share more details. They say they can't, but they're doing it anyway. And Bloomberg actually ran a story separately with an interview with TM Rowe, the head of mobile for Samsung, about that partnership. There wasn't a whole lot more details in there, but they very much want to keep it in your mind, but they have nothing to tell you at this point. Do you think lackluster is unfair for this Galaxy Unpacked?
I think the presentation, like the cinematography of the whole thing, was beautiful. but nothing that made me go, oh my God, this is amazing. I should start saving money.
Samsung has had some trouble at the top with its executives. It's had some trouble with labor, suffering some strikes. There was a lot of panic. We need to move faster. We need to move better. And this is the forward-facing evidence that that's true, that they are having trouble getting things out the door, moving features forward. I don't know if they're disorganized, but they certainly aren't launching as many new things in this Galaxy Unpacked as they may have in the past. And also, like you say, it was well produced and it looked great, but you didn't have a lot of the sizzle of like celebrities and music groups and things that you sometimes get. It was a very product-focused announcement.
DTNS is made possible by you, the listener. Thanks to Ken Hayes, Philip Shane, Paul Boyer, and our new patrons Jerry, James, Lisa, Ben, Philodendron, Max, and Anthony.
Yay! New patrons! Woo! There's more we need to know today. Let's get to the briefs.
A new feature in Chrome OS 132 lets Chromebook users move the cursor with head movements and facial gestures. Google also announced Chromebox OPS, which can be connected to a smart board or interactive touchscreen in a classroom to turn it into a big Chromebook. And Google Workspace for Education Plus class tools for Chromebooks, which lets teachers view student work remotely and share work with the whole class, also enables live translated captions. Notebook LM lets a teacher collect readings and notes together so students can generate summaries and study guides and lesson plans.
I mean, these are good announcements, and there's a lot of them that we didn't mention here. So if you're in the industry, you might want to go check these out closer. But Google dominating in the classroom, like that is kind of a silent story that has been happening slowly over the past years. Like they have taken over the education market for technology around the world, not just in the United States. Mm-hmm. Netflix added 18.9 million customers in Q4. That is its largest quarterly gain ever, bringing it to a total of 301.63 million subscribers worldwide. So yeah, I know there's like 24 of you in the audience who are immediately right now commenting on our subreddit. That's it. No one uses Netflix anymore. We're done with them. But apparently there's more of the other people than you, or you're lying and you haven't actually quit Netflix. Squid Game in the NFL, of course, drove part of the increase. But the fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson drove a record day of signups. This is the last time the company is going to report subscribers, though. It is switching to focusing on profitability versus growth. So they're not going to focus with their investors on how much are we growing subscribers. They're going to talk about how much we're making money. They're going to talk about revenue and which aspects of the business are bringing in the money. The company announced it will raise prices of its plans in Argentina, Canada, Portugal, and the United States. Prices in the U.S. are going up by anywhere from $1 to $2 per plan. It's pretty much equivalent in the other markets as well. Are you going to keep Netflix, or do you even have it, actually?
I do have it, but I'm on the fence. In Canada, hockey went to Amazon Prime for Monday nights.
Okay.
So in terms of sports and stuff, if I end up having to spend more on Prime, I will spend less on Netflix.
So would hockey be something you have to pay extra for, or is it included with Prime?
Currently it is included with Prime, but okay. I may up my Prime subscription because I'm on the basic one right now.
I gotcha. Okay. That makes sense.
Microsoft's deal with OpenAI has been changed to give Microsoft the right of first refusal for hosting OpenAI's services versus exclusivity. That means Microsoft can't or doesn't want to provide a service. OpenAI can now go shopping elsewhere. And it already has. OpenAI, SoftBank, and Oracle have created a joint venture called the Stargate Project to build multiple data centers in the U.S., starting in Texas. Microsoft, ARM, and NVIDIA will provide some of the technology for Stargate, but not hold equity in it.
Truecaller is an app on Android that can identify who is actually calling you in real time, like dig behind the transmitted caller ID and find out some extra information so you know more about who's trying to ring you. There's been an app for iOS, but it couldn't identify calls in real time. It had to rely on a locally saved dictionary of numbers that had to be updated, so it wasn't as accurate. However, the addition of live caller ID lookup in iOS 18 means it can now offer that service on iOS as well.
If you've been curious about Meta's smart glasses but don't necessarily like the Ray-Ban style, Bloomberg's Mark Gurman says the company is preparing smart glasses based on Oakley's Sphera design. Gurman also says Meta Reality Labs is developing earbuds with camera sensors and a smartwatch. The big deal there is that Ray-Bans can project a display in the bottom right portion of the lens, like Google Glass.
Yeah. Finally, we're back to the 20-teens. Oakley, very sporty, very, very popular with athletes. It makes sense to me that Meta is going to start diversifying what brands it works with and what brands it offers in the glasses. So yeah, I can't wait to see where they go next. But Ray-Bans, Oakleys, give me more options. These are good glasses. They're very well reviewed. They're very functional, and style is going to be important for getting more people into the tent. Couple of new generative model releases to note. A lot of people who know AI have pointed out that China's DeepSeek is a new model to watch. DeepSeek is the name of it. The company has made a model comparable to OpenAI's top models for cheaper. DeepSeek introduced DeepSeek R1 this week, their latest model. And another model that is less expensive to use and also comparable to these models is ByteDance's new released Doubao 1.5 Pro. ByteDance, of course, most famous for owning TikTok, but making some big advances in these generative models that you might not be able to use in the United States, but outside the United States, these are cheaper. And so a lot of companies and startups around the world and in places that don't have to worry about U.S. restrictions are probably going to pop for DeepSeek or Doubao.
YouTube announced new beta features for paying subscribers of YouTube Premium. The new features include 256 kbps bitrate audio quality, picture-in-picture for YouTube Shorts on iOS, automatic download of Shorts for offline viewing, and a web version of the mobile feature that lets you skip to the most watched portions of a video. YouTube also said an option for 4x speed playback is coming.
Am I crazy for wanting that?
No, I use the speed playback too.
I've never done anything at 4x though, but I look forward to trying. Silk Road founder Ross Ulbricht was pardoned by the U.S. president Tuesday after serving 10 years of his sentence. Ulbricht maintained at trial that he had relinquished control of the platform. He wasn't the guy in charge. He was being set up for the illegal activity on that dark web marketplace. The incoming U.S. administration also terminated all advisory boards in the Department of Homeland Security, including the Cyber Safety Review Board, which is investigating the Salt Typhoon intrusions into U.S. telcos. However, one part of the story I don't see discussed as often is that the advisors are all encouraged to reapply, but we're told that, quote, committee activities will be focused solely on advancing our critical mission to protect the homeland and support DHS's strategic priorities. One could assume that Salt Typhoon is one of those priorities. We will see. But it is the practice, which I don't particularly love, of firing everyone and making them reapply for their job, basically.
The Verge reports on a new software technology from Ivanisensify called Sensify. It can run on any Zigbee device that is wired for power to detect motion without any hardware adjustment. The software uses wireless networks sensing WNS, which works by detecting changes in radio frequencies, including Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and Thread. It needs 3 or more devices around a detection area to be able to triangulate motion. Ivanisensify says it is working with large household names to deploy the technology soon.
Yeah. So, maybe your Philips bulb will become a motion sensor with a firmware upgrade. Those are the essentials for today. Let's dive a little deeper into an ongoing story and follow up.
Data centers use tremendous amounts of power, and they're only going to consume more in the future. Mollywood is launching a series of episodes of Everybody in the Pool, talking to the big tech companies about how they plan to reduce the impact of this power usage on the climate. Tom sat down with Molly about some of the things she learned while doing these episodes.
Mollywood, thanks for joining me. Let's talk about Feeding the Matrix. Tell me a little bit about what this mini series within your show is and how it got named and everything.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited to do my first mini series on Everybody in the Pool, a themed set of 4 episodes. So, there has just been this very interesting crossover between my tech journalism life, where all I talk about is AI, and my climate journalism life, where increasingly all I talk about is AI, because these two things are coming together primarily around the question of energy and electricity consumption, right? We're hearing more and more and more about how training AI models consumes more electricity than traditional compute. Answering your questions and writing your emails consumes a lot more electricity than we would have imagined. And the kind of increase in demand for more AI means more data center construction, which was already happening. And so here you have these data centers, which already consume somewhere between 1% and 4% of global electricity, according to, depending on who is doing the measuring. And those, there are estimates that by 2030, just in the United States, data centers could consume as much electricity as like New Jersey, California, and Florida combined.
I like the way you are setting up these comparisons, because a lot of times I hear like the increase in energy is the same as the Netherlands. And I'm like, okay, is that a lot? Like it sounds like a lot, but because it's a country, but but putting it in percentages and putting it in comparisons to combinations, I think helps people know like, yes, it's a lot. It's not like half the world a lot. Let's not overestimate it, but it's a lot. So tell me a little bit about some of the interesting things you learned in talking to NVIDIA, talking to Microsoft, the people who are actually doing this.
Yeah. So I set out to, I'm calling the series Feeding the Matrix because, of course, I know the kids may not be as familiar with the great American classic, our prophecy, The Matrix.
Yes.
But the premise there, spoiler alert, from like the 90s, is that, as the need for power to power AI has grown, they literally got to the point where they just started using humans as batteries. And so I'm using humans in the movie.
Yeah. Not yet here. But
not yet here. Hoping to avoid that future, and also hoping to avoid it. I'm using, in this case, humans as batteries as an allegory for like a massive amount of increased emissions, right? Like we went through this with cryptocurrency where it was a power hungry process to create Bitcoin, to mine Ethereum, right? And I know Ethereum has gone to a less emissions intensive technology, et cetera, et cetera.
Proof of stake, not proof of work.
But it is reasonable now as I see these hyperscalers, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, cutting deals to reopen parts of nuclear reactors, desperately seeking more power. It's an important question to say, is this going to set back our emissions goals? Are these companies going to abandon their sustainability goals? And is the rush for AI going to eventually cook us all and turn us into the literal or metaphorical equivalent of these batteries? So I started this series I'm calling Feeding the Matrix. I spoke with the head of sustainability at NVIDIA, which of course is the chip maker that powers so much of this, the head of sustainability for AWS, Amazon's big data center business. I'm speaking about what can be done within the existing technology framework to make this more efficient.
Right. And that avoids them saying like, well, we just need to develop or we just need to perfect. You're saying, what can we do now?
What are you doing now? Exactly. And some of the learnings that came out of that are really interesting. For example, NVIDIA, every chip architecture that NVIDIA has released has been up to 98% more efficient than the architecture that came before it.
Okay. That's good.
And those releases are happening every 2 years. This is not like a 10-year increment, right? So the efficiency gains with just the processing are significant. In the case of AWS, they have put a ton of energy into, no pun intended, into just literal nuts and bolts things that make their existing data centers that much more efficient, like shortening, like locating servers closer to the wall or closer to the wires, right? Or stuff. Just like sealing the air ducts, things that you could be doing in your house.
Sure.
That make things more energy efficient, but then can have an exponential effect because so much of the innovation we talk about is related to new construction of data centers, but there's actually a ton of work that they can do on the inside to make sure that they're not using as much water or that electricity isn't being wasted or that, data isn't traveling farther than it needs to.
Stuff that might not have mattered in the past when the energy usage was low, but now makes a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And more importantly, that they have a business incentive to do it. It meets their sustainability goals, but also they don't pay so much for power.
Yeah. That's why I put solar panels on my house. So.
Exactly. And then in the back half of this series, I'm talking about innovation. So the data centers of the future, how do we make those as energy efficient as possible? Again, so that as we construct more, we don't cook. So I spoke with Realta Fusion, which is a fusion energy company that is developing fusion with the goal of their go-to-market, as we call it, is not to build power plants that plug into the grid. Mm-hmm. Their goal is to create power plants next to new data centers so that they will be what is known as island construction, island design. And so instead of dealing with interconnection or generating clean electricity that nobody really benefits from, even though it's plugged into the grid that we all pay for, they would their goal is like, just put a fusion energy plant here, power this data center, maybe recycle the heat that comes out into more power and be net positive as opposed to a drain.
It reminds me of how you make a chip more power efficient. You put the things closer to each other on the die, right? Like put the power source right next to the data center. That makes perfect sense.
And I was surprised to learn that hardly any data centers right now are power islands in this way. Most of them are plugged into the grid, even if they have some backup. And then finally, I spoke with this amazing woman who was an executive at Microsoft in charge of their regenerative data center design project. So I learned that even years ago, Microsoft was trying to figure out how to make data centers more sustainable and efficient, but also welcome in the community. Because what this all comes down to is that increasingly, for example, Singapore put a moratorium. Singapore is a huge market for data centers. Mm-hmm. Straight up put a moratorium on building anymore. Said, you know what? No, they're ugly. They're power hogs. They use up our water. They don't contribute to the community and they don't generate as many jobs as you said. So what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And so companies, again, back to the imperative, companies have a reason to try to figure this out. I'm heartened to hear that there are lots of reasons for them not to throw out their sustainability goals and just build, next to a coal plant in China.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I'm sure that people listening have a ton more questions. I have questions about details. I want to hear more about regenerative energy. If folks want to listen to this mini series, how should they do it?
They should go to everybodyinthepool.com or they should subscribe to Everybody in the Pool on their favorite podcatcher. There is a trailer up now, and the series will officially launch with NVIDIA on January 23rd.
Fantastic. Just a day away. Thanks, Molly.
Thanks, Tom.
What do you want to hear us talk about on the show? One way to let us know is in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at reddit.com/r/dailytechnewsshow.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared wisdom. Today, Sylvain is helping us understand our reactions to AI. Sylvain writes, just like previous innovative tech, it doesn't take jobs, but it does change them, giving us new opportunities. I, for one, welcome our new AI overlords. This comment was human-generated, I think.
I hope you know, actually. Yeah, this was in response to a top 5 video on our YouTube channel, but I thought it played well in light of all of the announcements about Gemini and Bixby and all of that stuff. And honestly, any day, right? Well, big thanks to Mollywood and Sylvain for contributing to today's show. Thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. The show is made possible by our patrons at patreon.com/DTNS. We have a live version of the show, too. You can watch us talk about stuff live on YouTube and Twitch. Find details on that and more at dailytechnewsshow.com. Talk to you tomorrow.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.